I welcome you to the Top 10 channel. Subscribe to the channel, put a like, and we start the next top. Top 10 accounts of cannibalism that will freak you out. Even in hypothetical scenarios of extreme necessity or survival, cannibalism is a taboo line that many people would not dare to cross. There are numerous moral, ethical, and even sanitary concerns within it. That isn't to say that it hasn't happened, or that it hasn't happened in ways that are beyond our wildest dreams. Here are 10 cases of cannibalism that would be unbelievable if they weren't so thoroughly documented. Rudy Eugene. We've all heard stories like Florida Man, but Rudy Eugene is proof that the depths of depravity possible in a drug-fueled anger are unfathomable. Rudy Eugene, 31, of Miami, Florida, crossed paths with homeless Ronald Papua on the MacArthur Freeway on a lovely sunny afternoon on May 26, 2012. Eugene's car broke down on his route to a beach party, but he continued on foot, stripping down to his underwear. The first red flag has been raised. Eugene lunged at Papua after a brief, presumably polite hello, knocking him out and stripping his pants. He then proceeded to bite Popo's face severely, biting off pieces of his face in the process. His left eye was one of those pieces. When authorities got on the scene, Eugene was deafeningly silent, but for an animalistic growl. After that, he was shot and murdered. While post-mortem toxicology testing were expected to reveal the presence of bath salts in his system, only marijuana was discovered. Four people, Papua New Guinea. It's easy, and frequent, to impose cannibalism on less civilized peoples who are cut off from contemporary society and object to their practices, but that's not what we're here for. Aside from the gross element, did you know that eating human flesh could be dangerous? Papua New Guinea's four people did not. Kuru, a deadly wasting disease, struck members of the Four Society at an alarming rate in the late 1950s. A transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, similar to mad cow disease, was discovered to be to blame. Prions, misfolded proteins, form plaques that convert your brain into Swiss cheese by causing neighboring proteins to misfold, in a way that scientists don't understand. This occurs when the meat of an infected cow is mashed up and fed to unwitting burger eaters. But what about the four people? It was discovered that they practice funeral cannibalism, in which eating the brains of the deceased is a symbol of sadness and respect. Women and the young were the most likely to ingest the deceased's brains. The Milwaukee Monster. Jeffrey Dahmer, aka the Milwaukee Monster, was a well-known serial killer who preyed on society's most vulnerable, gay sex workers, in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He would frequently entice these males, varying in age from 14 to 31, to his home with the promise of remuneration for nude photographs. Then he'd poison their drinks, strangle them, perform necrophilia on them, and mutilate their bodies. He would boil up the flesh of those he was attracted to in order to savor them. Dahmer once mused that human tastes like filet mignon. He then decorated his apartment with their bleached bones. Did you know, though, that the brevity with which he approached his misdeeds was ultimately what led to his death? To annoy his other inmates in prison, Dahmer would often arrange his food in the shape of dismembered limbs, finishing with a squirt of ketchup, blood. This is what drove inmate Christopher Scarver to pummel Dahmer to death in 1994, just a few years after completing his 16-year life sentence. Jamestown starving time. As children, we were frequently taught about the magnificent meeting of the Pilgrims and the indigenous peoples of America at what is now known as Thanksgiving. Even if we ignore the real genocide of their neighbors, life for America's earliest European settlers was not always easy. The population began to starve in the winter of 1609 to 1610, due to a dry rainy season that stunted agricultural growth, limited access to clean water, delays in supplies delivery, and simply too many mouths to feed. When horse, dog, cat, rat, or even shoe leather became scarce, the few remaining settlers turned to humans. Based on 4 shallow chop marks on her head, scientific study of discovered remains revealed that one 14-year-old girl was slain and sectioned apart to be eaten. Over the course of this tragic winter, Jamestown's population plummeted from around 500 to 61 people. Leonarda Cianciulli. If you're a follower of the increasingly popular mass fascination with true crime, which, judging by your interest in this piece, you probably are, you're aware that female serial killers are uncommon. So here's a little something for you. Cianciulli, Leonarda was born in a beautiful part of Italy and was terrified that none of her children would live to adulthood. This was partly due to fortune tellers, paranoia, and, more importantly, the healthcare accessible at the time. Only 4 children out of a total of 17 pregnancies had survived by 1938, so some of her worry was justified. That wouldn't do when her eldest child wanted to join the army in preparation for World War II. Leonarda's most reasonable option for ensuring his safety was 3 total human sacrifices, not 1, not 2, but 3. 3 women from her neighborhood were the victims, and we'll let Leonarda speak for herself about how she mistreated that trust. She ended herself in the pot, like the other 2. Her flesh was fat and white, so I added a bottle of perfume when it had melted, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make some quite acceptable creamy soap. I gave bars to friends and neighbors. I waited until it had coagulated, dried it in the oven, powdered it, and mixed it with flour, sugar, chocolate, milk, eggs, and a little margarine. Kneading all the ingredients together, she says of the residual blood, I baked a big batch of crunchy tea cakes and offered them to the ladies who came to visit, though Giuseppe and I ate them as well. North Korean black market. North Korea remains an insular totalitarian state under the control of their glorious, late, leader Kim Il-sung, steered by his progeny and their progeny, sworn to complete rejection of all outside influence, even in the year 2021. While we may find their attempts to appear modern amusing, such as Kim Jong fondness uns of Dennis Rodman and the phony props of actually uninhabited buildings in Pyongyang's capital, what we do not find amusing is the state in which the majority of North Koreans live. The majority of population, excluding the wealthy and government officials, survive on very little food, as testified by defectors who survived their escape into China and South Korea. This is now known as the hidden famine. Then there's the underground market. Some traditional and some strange-looking meats can be found in its deepest corners. These are also the places where children vanish. 2 siblings were last seen at a noodle store, according to a specific account. The proprietor would later admit that she had offered the kids a spot near the fire and some soup to keep them warm. She murdered them, butchered them, and then offered them up to eat when they fell asleep. The man who ate his own foot. This tale was submitted by Reddit user Incredibly Shiny Shart, and yes, before you ask, there are many interviews and photos to back it up. This user agreed with the doctor's choice to amputate after suffering a debilitating foot injury in a motorcycle accident. Now, evidently, eating human meat was a running gag among his friend group, so he reasoned, I'll just ask if I can bring my foot home. Isn't it safe? Now that they were back at home with their feet in hand, the gang decided to preserve what foot flesh they could, marinate it overnight, and pan-fry it alongside some veggies for tacos the next day. Tacos on your feet. Armin Minus. What if you could cannibalize yourself, we wondered in the previous entry. What if you could cannibalize someone else, but consensually? Asked Armin Minus, now known as the Rotenburg cannibal or Der Metzgermeister, the master butcher. Minus, you see, dreamt about the purest kind of intimacy, devouring someone else. As a result, they would exist indefinitely inside you. This want may have originated as a result of uncertainty in familial relationships during Mine's upbringing, but it has since evolved into one of his most powerful sexual drives. On the website The Cannibal Café, he found a willing partner in burnt Jürgen Armando Brandis. Forewarning: the following section is gruesome. On March 9, 2001, Brandis and Minus took sleeping pills and cough syrup, and Minus chopped off his penis, fried it in a skillet with salt, pepper, wine, garlic, and Brandis fat, but it was overcooked, much to Brandis' dismay. Minus was then stabbed in the neck, hung on a meat hook, and dismembered while he bled out in a tub, while Brandis read a Star Trek book. This was all captured on video. Brandis ate 44 pounds of Minus over the next 10 months before being apprehended after authorities were alerted to his online quest for a new spouse. Joel Guy Jr. Although this case does not include cannibalism, the horrible murder scene that authorities would be confronted with on November 26, 2016, is enough to turn anyone's stomach. Joel Guy Jr. was disappointed to find that, after 28 years of unemployment and relying only on his parents for assistance, they were preparing to retire soon, effectively cutting him off. He planned to murder Joel and Lisa, set fire to the house, and then blame it all on his father in a sad murder-suicide, raking in the $500,000 life insurance payout. Instead, authorities were dispatched to do a welfare check, and what they found was as follows. Joel Sr. had been stabbed over 40 times and mutilated, with the exception of his hands, which were recovered on the floor, mostly dissolving in a vat of decomposition stew. Lisa was stabbed over 30 times and suffered largely the same treatment, with the exception that her skull was discovered in a pot on the stove, possibly simmering for days. Yikes. Issei Sagawa. In 1981, Issei Sagawa, a Japanese-born student studying in Paris, devised a scheme to entice classmate Renée Hartevelt to his flat under the pretense of supper and poetry translation, then murder her with a rifle shot from behind, then mutilate, rape, and consume her body. He took pictures of her at each stage. He was apprehended while attempting to dispose of her remains, but was judged legally insane in France. He was deported and is now a free man thanks to legal loopholes. He's well known in Japan, and he's authored books detailing the bizarre logic that led to his atrocities. He felt inadequate and weak at 4 feet 9 inches, and he wanted to soak up Hartevelt's beauty and might. Isn't it just a pain in the neck? Subscribe to the channel and like it. There are still many interesting stories ahead.